there, and welcome to the little Reesor house where we like to celebrate and enjoy life lived in the little things. This past weekend, I was scrolling through Instagram and one of my favorite home accounts shared a roundup of beautiful side tables you could use as a bedside table. In this list, I found a beautiful side table from West Elm, and I could not help but look up the link. However, when I looked, it was a little bit out of our price range. But the more I got thinking about it, I figured I think I could probably DIY this table for less. So today I'm going to share with you a West Elm-inspired side table dupe and show you exactly what I did if you want to do something similar. Now let's get started. To start off this project, I drew up my design for the table. It seemed easy enough, and I actually had most of the supplies on hand. The only thing I needed to pick up was 3/4 inch dowels, but I'll get to that in a moment. I would need 2 different sizes of circles for the base and the top of the frame. 2 circles that were roughly 13 inches and 1 circle that was roughly 11 inches. You could use the nail and string tack, but I simply found a plate and a bowl that were roughly these sizes and traced them onto a scrap piece of 3/4 inch plywood. Using my jigsaw, I took my time cutting out each circle. It's worth noting that they were pretty imperfect, but I was going to be adding some texture on the final piece, so I sanded them down a little bit and didn't sweat the imperfection too much. I've got my 3 circles, so ideally this one is going to go on the bottom, and it will prop up a little bit, about 5 inches, which would be equivalent to this height. And then this guy is going to sit on top and this guy on top of that. And so that would be our side table. So my goal is that I would cut 12-inch dowels between these, and then there would be 5-inch dowels between these. So I guess what I need to do first is cut like some supports that we can put in here and prop it up and attach all of my circles together with the supports, and then I think the dowels will just bring in afterwards. I cut down some scrap pieces of 2x4s to support the round pieces. For the bottom portion, I cut 3 pieces at 5 inches tall, and for the top portion, I cut 3 pieces at 12 inches tall. I laid them in a triangular configuration and made sure there was still room between the edge of the circular piece and the position of the support piece for my dowel to sit. I then carefully attached each piece of the 2x4 support using wood glue and some brad nails. I repeated this process for the top portion of the table, only attaching one of the 2 circular pieces at this point. So I think what I might do next to make sure I can put these circles in the right spot on top of here is I think I'm going to do the dowels on this bottom section and get that done, and then I can rest the entire thing on top, nail it all in, at least maybe if I get some of them in place, I don't know, we'll see. So let's do that. With that, it was time to cut down my dowels. I ended up purchasing 16 4-foot long 3/4 inch dowels for this project, which allowed me a little bit extra for error. To figure out this number, I did some grade school math that essentially required finding the circumference of my circle and dividing it by 0.75 to account for the 3/4 inch dowel in order to figure out how many individual dowels I would need to go around my circle. I then figured out how many individual dowels I could get out of one 4-foot piece and divided the total number of individual dowels I would need by how many I could get out of one purchased piece, and voila, the number of dowels I needed to purchase. That sounds complicated, but it really wasn't too confusing when you have your specific numbers to plug in. I cut the dowels into 5-inch pieces and worked my way around the bottom piece using wood glue to adhere them in place. I lined them up flush with each other and the edge of the circular base. I ended up working around the entire base, allowing the glue to cure, and then flipping it over to pop a brad nail into each dowel to secure it in place. So what I ended up doing is finishing off this bottom part and putting all of these fluted dowels along it so that I had an idea about where this top piece should sit. So as you had seen, I attached already these brace pieces on the top piece, and then I just simply used my eye by setting it on top of the fluted bottom and just found where it felt centered. Once I did that, in order to get this top piece on, I first started placing some of these taller dowels, but because they're taller, they're 12 inches compared to the 5 inches below, I only did a few of them, and then I was able to place on the circle on the top and find the proper placement for it, and then continue to work my way around. My next steps are that I'm going to finish up this little section of fluting by cutting my final 4 dowels and get it all in place and ready and secured so I can move on to the next step. I continued working my way around the top portion to fill it in. I recommend attaching these dowels as you go because there were a few occasions that I needed to hold the dowel in place from the inside while fastening it. When I got to the last few dowels, there wasn't an even space for the final 3/4 inch dowel, so I had to backtrack a bit and inset some of the previous dowels slightly to create a little extra space for the final dowel. Just take that into account if you do this project. I let the glue cure for a day and was ready to move on to the final stages. The original inspiration image looked almost like a solid piece of stone, and I wanted a similar look with my table. I used drywall spackle and wood filler to fill in all the nail holes and to add some texture to the entire top and sides of the table. I covered the plywood edges and worked my way around each flute, adding compound with the corner of my spackle knife in each groove. Once everything dried, I went in with a sanding block and some fine grit sandpaper and smoothed out some of the rough edges. I wanted to keep some of the dimension and texture of the spackle though, so I was careful not to remove too much. I gave the entire piece a good wipe down with a damp cloth to remove any dust. Next, I came in with some caulking and filled between each crack where the flutes meet each other. I used my finger to smooth it out, wiping off any excess with a damp rag. I did this between every single flute on the top and bottom portion. Once painted, this would help my table look like one solid piece. Once the caulking dried, I tested a couple of different paint colors, a soft grayish tone and a creamy white. I loved the grayish, but I wanted this table to live beside my gray couch and thought that the creamy white would work better there. I painted the entire thing using 2 coats of Fusion Minerals paint in the color Raw Silk. I had this paint on hand, so it was quick and easy to use. All right, the second coat of paint is on and the table looks so cute. But I was thinking that since I'm going for a little bit of a stone type texture, I might just do a little bit of dry brushing in that grayish color and see if I can just add a touch more dimension or character or maybe wear, I don't know, onto it because it is looking pretty stark and clean. So I'm just gonna try that. I can always paint over it if it looks bad. And so I think that's my next step. I had the plywood, 2x4s, nails, glue, spackle, caulking, and paint on hand, and the only thing I needed to purchase was the wood dowels. This table cost me about 75 Canadian dollars to build, compared to the original West Elm version at 239. Plus, I got to customize the size to fit perfectly in this little nook and had the satisfaction of building something with my own 2 hands. That's a DIY win in my book. I want to thank you for watching today's video. If you would try a project like this, leave me a comment down below saying what you would do to make it your own. And if you're willing, like this video and subscribe to our channel. We love posting videos about little projects we're actually working on in our home in hopes that it inspires you to find the joy in the little things and making your space your own. Thanks again for watching, and remember that the best things in life are often the little things, like challenging yourself to create a dupe of a beautiful side table. Bye, friends.